Right. By the end of this video, you'll know why manifesting is real and how I know it's real. All right. So a lot of people have inadvertently manifested a great deal of anything. Whatever life that you're living now, it's likely that you've manifested it. Otherwise, how would it have come into being, right? This is something that I was thinking about a few years ago. Everything I've ever thought about, everything I've ever put my mind to, everything I've ever put a great deal of effort and energy into has at some point in the future inadvertently come true. By hook or by crook, it's happened. It's been realized. And this isn't just me. This is going to be something that you guys have done as well. And you probably didn't even realize that you were doing it. But when we put enough thought and energy and thinking and process into anything, eventually it comes true. And I discovered this the long and hard way because I'd never heard of manifesting before. To manifest, manifesting, never heard of it. But throughout my life, and it'll be the same for you, maybe you've thought about somebody that you're attracted to when you were younger or recently. Maybe it's a job or a career that you'd always envisaged yourself doing. Maybe you always wanted to be a flight attendant, and instead of just applying for the job, you didn't bother doing it. Maybe you are a flight attendant, and the reason why you're doing it is because not only did you apply for the job, but you really wanted to do it. And you really wanted to do it, so you put a lot of thought into it. You researched it. You went on loads of websites. Whenever you'd catch a flight, you'd always look to see what the hostess, what the cabin crew or the steward are doing. And you'd envisage yourself doing that job, whether it's doing the safety briefing, whether it's carrying out your duties on the aircraft. You'd imagine yourself even wearing the uniform. Well, if you've done that, then eventually your dreams come true and it's being realized. Ultimately, whatever we think about, and if we put enough thought and energy into it, eventually it will come to fruition. It can be places, could be places that you've thought about traveling to, could be places that you want to live, could be places that you just want to visit. If you love skiing and you love that alpine landscape and you can smell it and you can think it and you can dream it, then eventually you'll go and visit there. That's just natural. It's absolutely natural. I've learned the long and hard way, basically just through living and not necessarily realizing my dreams, but anything I've ever wanted to do, I've ended up doing it. And it's just simple as that. And it could be micro scenarios. It could be something that I want to do this evening. It might have been something that I want to do at the weekend. It might be a career, the person that I end up wanting to spend time with. Could be a relationship, could be a vacation. You can probably hear my dog whining. He doesn't like it when I talk into the camera because it's unorthodox, it's irregular, and he doesn't like it because he thinks I'm talking to him. He doesn't understand what I'm saying because I'm not using any keywords. So I learned the long way that manifesting is real. And it wasn't until I came across the phrase manifest that I looked into it that I realized that, well, hang on a second, this phenomenon, which I've been experiencing my entire life, where every time I've tried to do something, every time I've put thought into it, it's ending up coming true. Not necessarily instantly, but maybe it's taken a week, maybe it's taken 5 years, perhaps it took 10 years, but eventually it has happened. And that phenomena is called manifesting. So in order to accept that such a thing exists and is real, if you're watching this, then you probably have something which is called an abstract mind. And that's an abstract way of thinking. And what that means is that you take responsibility for your own life. You've taken responsibility for your own actions, your own objectives, and your own outcomes. Whatever it is that you're doing now, wherever you are, however you feel, whatever it is that you're doing, how it is that you're living your life, you should have taken responsibility for that. The alternate way of thinking is something called authoritative thinking, where we rely on other people to run our lives for us, people who we perceive through reality, through our senses, usually through the media, to be authoritative figures. So an example would be if you were having a chat with someone and you told them, I'm doing my dream job, this is my dream career, I'm living on that beach house on the coast somewhere, and I did it through the power of manifesting, 99% of people will probably laugh and say that you're crazy and that you're some sort of mystic or mystical witch or something like that. Because believe it or not, spiritual people, people who have abstract beliefs, which is really another way of saying an open mind, trigger other people, because most people have closed minds. That means that they're often incredulous and have the inability to even do a bit of research into any alternate subject, but also becomes extremely difficult for them to even believe it, yet alone pick up a book and read about it. So yeah, you probably have an abstract mind. People with abstract minds tend to trigger people who don't have abstract minds. Now, if we think about manifesting, I came across a term a few years ago through popular culture. It was probably whilst watching reality television, which I don't watch anymore. And it was a few years ago, the phrase manifest, I'll manifest this, maybe I can manifest this, kind of entered popular culture and it entered many people's frames of reference. But what that actually allowed people to do was hear the term, think about it, process it for a split second, and then they discard it. They don't think about it anymore. So when you then try to have a conversation about manifesting on a spiritual and serious level, most people discard it and they reject it because they heard it on reality TV or they heard it on another TV show. Therefore, it's just something you heard on the TV and therefore it can't be real. Now, somebody with an authoritative mindset won't believe something unless they see it on the evening news. So tonight, for example, if there's a documentary on at 9 o'clock, wherever you are, and there's an official scientist on there with a lab coat on saying we've conducted a 10-year study and they've told us that manifesting is a real thing, then overnight people will start believing it. But reality doesn't quite work that way. We have to sometimes figure things out for ourselves. And if you have an abstract way of thinking, it's much simpler, much easier for you to figure these things out. And that's why you're watching this now. So yeah, I discovered that manifesting is real. If you're watching this, you probably already know it's real. And how we get from where we are to what it is that we want isn't necessarily the most important thing. It's having that outcome, that mustard seed planted in your subconscious, which we decode from the world around us. So manifesting, it is real. I've proved it, and you've probably got plenty of examples of where you've proved it as well and experienced it. And it could be something just as simple as you were out at the weekend having a conversation with a friend and you were talking about another friend, and minutes later you walk around the corner or you're sitting in a coffee shop and that friend then walks into the shop where you were 2 minutes ago talking about them. And we can put things like that down to fate, coincidence. They're topics that we will talk about another time. But ultimately what you've done is by the two of you having the conversation about that person, thinking about them, visualizing them, the universe has then sent that person to you. And I know it sounds crazy, and it does sound crazy, but that's a perfect example of something that everybody watching has definitely experienced. Doesn't matter how old you are or what your experience is, you've definitely experienced talking about somebody and then that person then appearing to you. Well, in short format, that's an example of manifesting. In order to be clear on our objectives and what it is that we want to achieve, what it is that you want, what it is that you desire, that requires our mind to be thinking in line with our body and our soul and our spirit. If your mind's scrambled and it's confused or it's being bombarded from exterior sources, which our minds are being conditioned continuously, And that doesn't have to be anything nefarious. That can just be, as we go through our lives, we experience new things and we get used to new situations, and then we become conditioned to them. A really simple example would be if you live in Canada where it's cold in the winter. It gets hot in the summer though, but a lot of people don't realize Canada gets warm and hot in the summertime because of the humidity. But for example, if you live there, then it's cold for 3, 4, 5 months of the year. If all of a sudden you then move to a tropical location like Florida or somewhere in Southeast Asia where it's hot all the time, you have to get conditioned. You have to get used to a new way of living. And that's a short example of simple conditioning where there's nothing nefarious behind it. It's just our minds adapting to new surroundings and new information which we're receiving. In order to positively and effectively manifest, we have to get our mind under control and we have to get our feelings under control, because whatever we think and whatever we feel will inevitably come true at some point in the future. What's also important to note and remember is that positive thinking raises our vibration. And if it's raising our spiritual and energetic vibration, then it means you're going to attract in more positive experiences, more positive feelings, more positive situations. And that's because you're thinking positively, therefore you're acting positively, therefore you're attracting in abundance, which is positive, and that will raise your vibration and keep your vibration at that high active level, which is the level that we want to be at in order to live a happy, joyful, fulfilled life. Ultimately, what we do is we attract in, through the process of thought and thinking and feeling, what it is that we want, what it is that we desire. So have a think about what it is that you want. Where are you now? What are you doing? Where do you want to be in a week? Where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years? And we have to apply objective-based thinking in order to get from A to B. Now, the journey itself, like I mentioned earlier, isn't necessarily the most important thing. The important thing is having a start point and an end point with an objective. And with that in place and the power of positive thought, ultimately anything can come true and absolutely anything is possible, because we live in a wonderful, beautiful, magical world where our dreams can come true. And there's absolutely no reason why your dreams can't come true. All it requires is just a small shift in thinking to start, and a small shift in thinking leads to a greater shift in thinking, and then a greater, more open mindset, which allows you to attract in what it is that you want using positive thoughts and positive feelings, because we all want to be happy. We all want to be thinking positive. I know it's not always that easy, and I know it isn't always that simple, because life takes over and sometimes the unexpected happens and we can feel ourselves and find ourselves in negative thought processes and negative thinking cycles. And sometimes we can't see the woods for the trees. And I understand that. But with simple methods and practices of changing your mindset to think positively, we can attract in what it is that we want and what it is that you want. So, yeah, crazy. Can't believe that I've just told you that manifesting is real. I'd say 15 years ago, I probably would have said, I don't believe this. It sounds cuckoo. If you're watching this video, then you know it isn't cuckoo, and you're probably interested in how you can actually manifest, and it could be anything. And I'm going to be making a lot more videos about our thinking patterns, our positive thinking, how positive thinking and objective-based outcomes create your future and your reality, because the universe has a funny way of sending you what it is that you actually want.